Hi everybody, welcome to our live event. So this is going to be sort of a show and tell style event where I just give you guys some ideas and show you guys some cool projects that you could work up for if you're interested in making some holiday ornaments this season. I've gotten a lot of requests for holiday ornaments and a lot of requests for amigurumi, so we're going to be talking about both things and how you can convert amigurumi patterns to ornaments, just some little tips and little tricks as we kind of walk through these little projects. It's just going to be like a little cute things parade today. I'm glad you guys are here. Definitely if you guys have any input, like if you want to see something again, or if you have any questions, you have any thoughts like what would make a cool project in the future for me, definitely put those in the chat. I love hearing from you guys. If you just want to say hi, that's great too. Okay, so let's get started. So I love making amigurumi. I love making little things. I love making holiday ornaments. It's just a really fun, creative process, and they're usually small, so a lot of times I'll have like, I can make it out of scraps. It won't cost anything, but also, you know, it's a quick little thing that you can get done, you know, in an evening or so, which makes it extra fun, in my opinion. I love making fast projects. Okay, so first I want to talk about the projects that have actually been designed to be ornaments. So these projects are coming from the Creative Crochet Corner website, but also some from our sister site, Craftsy. And these all have live tutorials that you can follow along. They will, you know, teaching you, how to construct all of these things. Later on when we get into the things that were actually constructed as amigurumi and we're converting them to ornaments, I will have some little tips, or I'll tell you what I did differently to change the size or things like that. But they're all, I would say, very approachable. Some of these are more beginner level, some of these are more intermediate, and I'll kind of try to keep that in mind, like to let you know as we're working our way through. Okay, so let's start out first by just talking about the things that were actually designed as an ornament. So this little pickle, this was on Craftsy, and I believe it's on the Creative Crochet Corner website as well. This little guy it's called the Christmas Pickle Ornament. Oh, and you guys can find all of the links to the live tutorials and also the free patterns. Those are linked in the description. So you can, if there are any that you're interested in working up, you want to check them out a little bit more, you can go ahead and look at the description and find those links. Okay, so this cute little guy, he is crocheted in the round, and he's crocheted inside out so that when we place these beads, all these little glistening beads, they're little glass beads, those are pre-strung onto his little, onto the yarn first, and then as we crochet around in single crochet, we just are kind of like placing beads as we go. If you've never worked with beads before, this is a great introduction. It's a quick project. You're not going to be stringing the beads on until the end of time because there's, I don't know, maybe 50 beads or so on here. I don't really remember, but it is a really fun project, and it's so, it's really gratifying to see all these cute little glistening little sparkly beads on here in this little ornament guy. So you can go ahead and find that link to the tutorial and also to the free download for the pattern. Like I said, it was on Craftsy, and I believe it's also on the Creative Crochet Corner website as well. I'm almost positive it's on both. So this little guy, Christmas Pickle Ornament. This is another ornament that was made to be an ornament. So this actually came from the live event that I did that was all about how to wrap up your gifts using crochet. So I made some like crochet twine. I also did some block prints with crochet snowflakes that I made onto brown wrapping paper. I'm trying to remember what else I did in that tutorial, but it was just kind of a fun, unusual, like, hey, here's some fun ideas on how to like make your Christmas gift giving a little more personal with these kind of gift wrap ideas. It's just sort of an interesting and unusual video to check out. So this is just a star Christmas ornament, and what I had done was I took a star shape that is actually on the Creative Crochet Corner website. There is a section under patterns, free patterns. It's under articles and then under free patterns. So if you look for it that way, there's like 5 different shapes download. So there's a circle, a triangle, a star, a square, and something else that I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there were five shapes. because I had been getting requests to make stars and one of the other shapes in there, and I thought, you know, this would be like a good download to give people, so that way, you know, if you're kind of wanting to DIY yourself a project, make something that's, you know, you're kind of inventing the pattern itself, and you needed some basic shapes to get you started, that's where that came from. So I made 2 of those crochet stars, and then I used a little bit of fusible interfacing on the backing because this particular star pattern, it's very quick and super easy, and you're not weaving in a million ends, you're just kind of going around and around and around, and then you're slip stitching it together. So because of that, we're making these really tall stitches in this direction. You've got some tall stitches here, and I didn't want the stuffing to show through. So what I did was I used a fusible interfacing, fused it to the wrong side of this cotton ornament, you know, just the star, before I put the 2 stars together and added the stuffing in the middle. So these are quick to make. They make a really cute present topper, in my opinion. I think they're extra cute, and of course they look good on your tree. So that's where that one came from. And then this little guy, this is a cardinal ornament. This looks much more tricky than it actually is. The head and body, this little section, it almost looks like one of those like a fortune cookie shape kind of thing. It's what happens when you work in a circle and you make more increases than would allow it to lay flat, and then it just sort of forms this bird shape. It was just sort of one of those projects that is much easier to make than it actually looks. It looks quite complicated. But yeah, there's a full tutorial, pattern download. It's the cardinal Christmas ornament, or maybe just cardinal ornament. I can't remember the official title, but you can find that on the Creative Crochet Corner website. All right, this little guy here, this is a tiny little snowflake. I made this with a crochet thread that was the size 10 crochet thread. Of course, if you wanted to make a larger snowflake, you know, you could use a thicker thread, you could use a crochet thread that's a size 3, or you could use like a dishcloth cotton and make a snowflake that's about this big. But I wanted just a small little delicate snowflake. And in the tutorial, I teach you how to stiffen this using a fabric stiffener, how to create this nice crisp shape, basically how to block it with the stiffener in it, and to finish it all up so nicely. But this is like that classic crochet at Christmas, you know, Christmas snowflake. I remember these when I was a kid. You know, they were probably already antiques or at least vintage, the ones that we had on our tree, but they were like little crocheted snowflakes. Okay, let's see. I think that's it for the ornaments that were actually created as ornaments. Yes. Okay, so now let's get into me making things that were amigurumi and turning them into ornaments. Oh, we've got some good mornings here. Good morning. We've got a hello from San Antonio. And Molly says, I made a collection of ornaments for my sister-in-law for Christmas last year, and she loved them, especially the pickle. Aw, awesome. Cool. All right. So whenever you make an amigurumi, you can choose the size of, you know, your amigurumi based on the thickness of the yarn. So, you know, the designer will choose whatever they think looks the best and they'll create it in that. But, you know, as with anything else, if you change the yarn size and make it thicker and use a bigger hook, and you still want this just to be nice and dense though, you don't want to see the stuffing through, that's going to create a larger piece. So, you know, vice versa, if you already have an amigurumi like this little hot chocolate and marshmallows, I made this for a Craftsy live. So we've got this cute little cup and these little bitty marshmallow guys. We've got one that's half melted. That's why this one's shorter. It was kind of designed to be sitting in the cup, and then this one I had designed for it to just kind of be sitting on the table next to it. It's the little taller sister marshmallow. But I designed this for, you know, to help beginners learn how to crochet amigurumi. It's very simple, very easy to make, and there's very little sewing. I think the only sewing really is attaching the mug handle here and here, just a few little stitches. So for those of you who like those low sew projects, this is a good one. So I wanted to convert this. I just always really liked this design and I thought it was so cute and so silly, and I really wanted to convert this into an ornament. I thought it would make a really nice Christmas ornament, and so I made this little version of it here. So this little guy, and here we have these shorter marshmallow like floating in the top. So this little guy, I changed him up. Instead of using, this is like a, I would say slightly thicker worsted weight yarn. This is like beginner, it's called beginner yarn. I purchased this yarn on Amazon. But this is very similar to that Woobles yarn. I feel like it's called Easy Peasy or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But it is that kind of tube yarn, that knit tube yarn that's really easy to work with. But it is a little bit thicker. It's like I would say a heavier worsted weight yarn. And I knew that I wanted the size to be smaller, so I opted for something that is like in between a sport and a DK weight yarn. And I stitched it up very tightly to make this little guy here. So you can see the size difference between these two. Just by changing the hook size and the yarn size, we've got a new little guy down here. And then I used a different type of eye. These eyes are, I'm trying to remember what they're called. They recess down into the fabric. Oh, I can't think of the name of them right now. I'll have to come back to that. If you guys, sinker eyes, that's what they're called. They're sinker eyes. So I did, in case you've never used these before, I've never seen them before, I actually did a tutorial all about just safety eyes because there's so many different styles, and I wanted to talk about where I get them from because there's lots of different options and just sort of show you the difference, how to use them, all that kind of stuff. If you're curious about that, I do have a tutorial on the Creative Crochet Corner website all about eyes, safety eyes, basically. All right, so that's my cute little hot chocolate and a little marshmallow. Oh, and when I made this, you know, because these marshmallows were not actually attached, they were just made to be sort of like props to be with this little amigurumi guide. You could reposition them. I wanted this marshmallow to stay in place. So what I did was I made this hanging loop out of just, you know, I think this is a crochet cotton 3, maybe, crochet thread 3. And what I did was I started down here and I kind of pre-woven my end, sent my needle all the way up through the cup, out through the top of this marshmallow, and then I kind of wove it back and forth just to make sure that it wasn't going to, I didn't want the marshmallow to slide up and down or kind of get knocked out of place. So I kind of wove it through the thickness of the yarn back and forth, and it came out into the loop and back down, wove it through the thickness back and forth, and then down through the marshmallow and through the cup and down here. And the reason that I anchored it to the bottom of the cup, and so if you imagine, this cord is actually quite a bit longer and it goes all the way through to the bottom of the cup. I do that a lot of times in my ornaments, especially if they're like, I mean, this isn't heavy, I wouldn't say, but if I'm worried about it distorting, I don't want my ornament where it's hanging, I don't want that to start pulling up and getting a weird point on the top of it. So I will anchor it actually at the bottom of my piece by kind of weaving back and forth there and having the cord come all the way up and out the top, if that makes sense. So that's what I did to create this little ornament guy. So in a similar vein, I have this this really cute little succulent here. So this little project actually started out as a smaller bit, which I thought would be a very, very cute little ornament. This was worsted weight yarn. And when I created this project, I made it and I thought, oh, that's super cute. Now I want to see what it looks like in that really thick, cozy chenille yarn. And then I stitched it up and it's this size. So you can see the difference here. This is a worsted weight acrylic yarn. This is that chenille, I'm trying to remember, parfait, I think it is, or no, I think this is a Hobie yarn, I'm pretty sure. But you can, if you want to know exactly what yarn it is, you can always check out the download for this little guy, the succulent amigurumi. So really the only thing that I changed is I stitched the pot to the bottom of the dirt. This one is actually still removable because I thought that was kind of fun to be able to unpot your little succulent. And I didn't want it to fall off on the tree, so I just kind of stitched my hanging loop here through that bottom, and it comes out the top in between the little succulent leaves. So it's just a little hanging loop hanging from the bottom of the pot, like that. And then, so let's talk about this little mushroom guy. So this little mushroom, I created this for the Crochet Corner website, and this was made to be a backpack charm. It's been used quite a bit. You can see it's getting a little bit fuzzy because it's been riding around on one of my kids' backpacks for a long time. But it has this little ball chain at the top. I basically made the exact same thing, but I just decided not to put the face on it for the ornament. Here's the ornament here. And I made the ornament out of a slightly thinner yarn. So this was a worsted weight that was slightly on the thinner side. And then this was like somewhere between a sport weight and a DK weight. And then I stitched it up at a very dense gauge. I just used a 3.0 millimeter hook, this hook here, and I used that to create all these itty bitty little, like the hot chocolate, I used that 3 millimeter hook, and this mushroom, and these are all made out of the same thinner yarn because I just had lots of scraps of that. And as I was making this, I was thinking that this would be super cute if you have sort of more of a sparkly theme going on your Christmas tree. I thought that this would be really cute with some little sequins instead of the little embroidered details here, or possibly like little sparkly rhinestones instead. Like, I just thought that would make it kind of a cute, you know, sparkly Christmassy touch. And then of course we're going to add a hanging loop to this, and I left this off just so that I could talk a little bit about the anchoring of those hanging loops. So this pattern actually has a little circular piece down on the inside of the mushroom, and that's what attaches this ball chain, because I did not want the top of my mushroom getting all stretched out, and I knew it was going to be riding around in a backpack. So this has a way to anchor it. I actually do have that piece inside here, and that's what, you know, if you just imagine there's just like a little, it's like the size of a quarter maybe, little crocheted piece sitting in there, and then underneath that quarter there's some stuffing. And when you stitch the stem onto the bottom of the mushroom, you stitch up through the stuffing and out the top of the quarter and back down, in and out. And that's what keeps your mushroom, like the bottom of your mushroom, nice and curved up in here, if that makes sense, and kind of flat along the bottom. Otherwise, it sort of wants to turn into more of a ball shape, which is fine. But I was trying to avoid that. So that little piece is inside here. So you could use that piece to hang the top loop if you had planned ahead of time, but I kind of forgot about all that, and then I thought, okay, now I just need to hang my little loop from the top here. And so I just wanted to show you, when I do this, sometimes I will just look for a space that's down below that I can anchor it to, like on that little hot chocolate. This yarn needle is probably a little bigger than I would need, but that's okay. I wanted to use a sharper tapestry needle so that I could send this through and come out the bottom and kind of anchor my hanging loop right there, because it's going to pull from that point, and that's going to be just like a beneficial spot for it to hang on to, I guess, because it's going to be pulling the bottom of the mushroom up, which is what I want. So I'm going to go take a little stitch and come back out of the top. And you want to come out just a little ways away so it's not through the same space. Like that. And then sometimes what I do is I'll just tie a little knot, and then if you don't want the knot to show, you can tuck that down into the mushroom or whatever it is that you're adding a little loop onto. So let's just say, here's my knot, and then you could tuck this down in by pulling it through like this. And then there we go. So the knot can go on the inside. And then I would use my yarn needle and just get rid of these yarn tails. I mean, you can cut them a little bit shorter as well, but there we go. So I just wanted to show you, like, for me, when I'm adding these little loops onto my ornaments, I like to do this extra little step because I just think that it helps the ornament stay, keep it from stretching out on the top. You don't want all the weight from, not that they're that heavy, but you don't want it to be pulling from just one little tiny stitch in your project either. So, and then we can tuck that out the bottom like that. And there we go. So you can see the top of it, and you can just snip off those little bits there. Okay, so there's our little mushroom. And then recently, I don't know, a few months ago or so, I made this cute little chicken. So this is a little amigurumi project made in that chenille yarn, and I thought it would be really cute as a super tiny chicken. So again, I pulled out that somewhere between sport and DK weight yarn, that 3mm hook, and then I made this super cute little guy. And I noticed, you know, when you're converting something that's a chenille pattern into a non-chenille pattern, I have noticed that chenille stitches oftentimes tend to be a little bit taller. If you guys are amigurumi makers and you make stuff in chenille, you may have noticed that, you know, if you are making a flat circle, normally you put 6 single crochets around in that circle, then you do 12, then you do 18. If you do a circle like that, you will get a little bump at the very bottom, or at the very center of your circle, because your stitches are slightly taller in proportion in chenille yarn compared to other yarns. This is something I didn't realize right away, and I couldn't figure out what was happening at first. And then I thought, oh, I see. The proportions are different because it's just this fluffy yarn, so it has slightly different proportions. So what I did to make up for that, you know, if you take a chenille pattern and you stitch it up in regular yarn, oftentimes it'll be just a little bit more squat, which could be very cute. But I wanted my chicken to be a little taller through the body, so I just did a couple extra rounds, I think maybe 2 extra rounds, working even before I did that little section of the tail. And then again, I did the same thing when I was working up the neck. I think I added 2 extra rounds in there as I was doing that, just to make the neck, you know, to keep the neck nice and tall for this little tiny version. And then another thing, and I'll be talking about this in a little bit probably on my next thing that I show you guys, but when you put that loop in, you need to be careful that you're hanging it from a place that's going to allow your ornament to hang the way you want it to. So that you really have to find a good balance point. And that may not be it may not be the center of your piece. Like if you were looking at this and you thought, oh, it would look nice if your little ornament came from here, or maybe it came from the top of the head. But both of those balance points will make this particular ornament not hang correctly. If I did it from the head, if I kind of hung it from the head, it was swinging forward like this, and I did not like how that looked. If I hung it from the center back, then the head, you know, just sort of falls down. So you need to find a good balance point when you're adding that little loop to make your ornament stay exactly, you know, hang exactly how you want it to, effortlessly, right? So that just takes a little bit of playing around just to figure out where that is. So, and now I can show you that on this little guy. So this is my cat cube. So I had designed this guy for the Creative Crochet Corner website, and I wanted to show people that it's really, really easy to make amigurumi. It can be the first thing that you make. It can be like, if you've never crocheted before, ever, you can make this little cat cube, because all this is 2 rectangles and 2 squares put together. So that was kind of where this design came from. I just wanted it to be something really cute, because as I've been teaching some kids to crochet, they really want to make something that they're excited to make. You know, they don't want to necessarily make a dishcloth or a scarf, because partway through they get really bored, or they're not excited about the end product. But when you are teaching a cat to I wish I could teach a cat to crochet. When you're teaching a kid to crochet, if you have them, you know, make something really adorable like this cat, then they're like a little more motivated to keep going and to finish it and see the end result. So that's where this little guy came from. This is, again, using that chenille yarn and a larger hook, probably like a 6mm hook or something like that, or at least 5.5. And then this little version of him, I think I used fewer stitches across here, possibly. Well, maybe not. It might be about the same. But this was a worsted weight yarn and a much smaller hook, like probably an F hook. But in this tutorial, I talk about how you can really make this rectangle with however many stitches you want to, so you can very easily alter this pattern by making if you want to make a really tiny cube, you don't have to work across as many stitches, and then you make your rectangle a little shorter. And I do talk about that in the live event, and probably also in the download too. I can't remember because I wrote that a while ago, but there is a download teaching you how to do it, and of course the live event as well. So this little guy needs to have his his little tie added. And if we wanted to find the balance point, sometimes I will use a stitch marker. And you know, I'll stick my hook in sometimes if I'm feeling lazy and see if I can get it to hang from a certain spot, but it's a little bit harder to tell you know, if it's going to balance unless you really have it on a string, or if you don't want to thread the string through, you can also just take a little stitch marker and thread it on through. And see, when I put it in the center of the body, his nose is dipping down, and that's because there's a lot more weight on the front of him. He's got these eyeballs and these ears, so that's something to think about. So that's why you would want to probably add the string somewhere closer to the front. Like that actually seems like a very good balance point. He seems to not want to, you know, that seems like a good spot. So we can just put the string there, and you know, if you wanted to, you could send it all the way down through the bottom and come back out the top. So that is what I would do. Let me see here. And that may seem weird, that why would you need it to balance at the top when you're actually attaching it to the bottom? Oh, I just realized I don't have my scissors with me. There we go. Okay, so we can go in through here, like close to where, just between the ears, just slightly set back, and then down out the bottom. And I'm just going to hang on to one of these strings here. And then I'm going to go through the thickness of the yarn, so we don't actually see, we don't want to see that thread, but we want it to be, you know, gripping those stitches. And then we're going to go right back up and come out the top. And that balance point, you know, wherever it's coming from at the top, that's where it, you know, that's what's going to dictate how your piece is going to be balanced. And then you can go ahead and just tie a little knot. And then you can hide those extra threads at the bottom if you want to, but if you do that, you have to loop all the way up and tie a knot very close to the top of that cat and poke it back down in there. You know, because right now we've anchored it at the bottom. It might be hard, you may be able to slide it all the way around, but I would just leave it probably up at the top, or you can tie your knot right next to the head and have a loop come out, back down, and then the knot be next to the head. Okay, so we found a good balance point on this little guy here. Okay, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about, oh, I forgot this little ornament here. Let's talk about this heart. So this came from a pattern that was actually a pair of earrings. It was called Heart of Gold earrings, and I made these little hearts out of a crochet thread. I think it was probably size 10. Crochet thread, but it could have been size 3. I can't remember. But if you're interested in making them, you know, the link is in the description for those little heart earrings. They were for Valentine's Day, and I used this metallic gold paint to paint the top of the heart because I thought it looked really pretty. And then they just had like a little chain coming through, and then like a little fish hook earring attached at the top. But I thought this heart would make a really nice Christmas ornament. And then I thought, I don't want to paint it gold. I want to actually make it look like there's snow on top. And so I don't know if you guys can see all the glittering that's happening here, but this little snowy, icy stuff, I just added that using a glue gun, which hopefully this is hot enough now that I can show you how to do this. If you are making something and you want to add that sort of snowy touch to an ornament, all you need to do is have a little glue gun, squeeze a little glue out, and then shake glitter on it. See, I've got my glitter here. So I'm going to add just a little bit more up at the top of this heart here. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, keep in mind as the glue kind of pools, it's going to drip downwards, and you'll get these fun little sort of icicle drips, which I actually encourage and like. But the way that you're holding the ornament is going to dictate where those go. So you don't want to hold it this way and put a little glue on there, because it's going to look kind of odd, because the little sort of drips are going to be going in the wrong direction. So hold it in the way that, basically the way that you want the ornament to be when it's hanging from your tree. And we're just going to add some glue here. And I put enough in usually so that it kind of just drips like that. Let it kind of run down. If it's going, ooh, this is very hot, so it wants to run really fast. So I'm gonna let it cool just a slightly as I dump this glitter all over it. Okay, so the glitter needs to go on while that glue is quite hot, and then it'll stick really well. And you know, you can always reuse that glitter. It might seem like I'm wasting a whole bunch, but you can just fold your paper and dump it back into your little glitter container. So, and then you just have to kind of, you can set it in a cup or hang it from something. I always like to have the loop here already in the heart before I do this, because then I can see if it's going to balance. If I want my heart to hang from the center, I can see now that I added that glue to that side, it's a little heavier on that side, and I can add a little bit more to the opposite side and make it balance. So let's just say we wanted to add a little more. Over here. Like that. And then I'll see if this will hang. Looks pretty good. I think I need to add just a tiny bit more glue, because it still wants to be just slightly crooked, slightly askew. You can add that afterwards to get your heart to balance, but then it might not be in the middle of the heart, and it might just look a little, I just wanted it to look symmetrical. I really wanted the loop to come from the center of the heart. So I just figured I'd add a little to one side and add a little to the other until it hangs good. Yeah, so that seems fine. That's gonna work. All right, so that's how to add that sort of like a little frosty, glittery, like accent to your pieces. If you know, this heart didn't look super Christmassy before, but then I added that little snow bit on there, and I think it just kind of added a nice little snowy touch. Oh, we've got couple more hellos. Retta, I'm late joining, but here I am. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. You can always go back and watch the stuff that you missed if you're interested. You know, later on it'll be here for you. And we've got a hi from Crochet Flower. Hi. Oh, Sandy, thank you so much for the compliment. I'm glad you're liking these. Anna, greetings from Panama. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Molly says, my nephews love to move around the ornaments, so the crochet ones are perfect since they can't break. Thanks for all the ideas. The hot chocolate would be a favorite. Awesome. Thank you, Molly. Yeah, I remember when my kids were very young, there were a lot of ornaments we just didn't put on the tree, because I just knew that they were going to end up getting, you know, injured, broken on the floor. But yeah, we could always put out the ones that we sewed or the crochet ones, and you know, they didn't hurt when they whipped the ornaments at each other, so that was a plus. All right, I think this is cool enough. I can actually set it down now. Yeah, pretty good. Okay. All right, so I just had a couple little notes also to let you guys know. I have been working on the Creative Crochet Corner website for our members of the website who are able to see the premium videos. This little elephant tutorial is on there, and I thought that this would make a really cute little ornament as well. And I would stitch this up in a worsted weight yarn. I just think it would be super cute. This is, I think it's a low sew. Yes, this is a low sew, almost a no sew. Maybe it is even a no sew pattern. I can't remember. It was a while ago that I designed this, but there's almost no sewing involved here at all. It's very, very cute. And so I think that when you're making something that's so teeny tiny and you're gonna make, this even smaller as an ornament, it really does help to have those low sew or no sew patterns, I feel, because the sewing part, that it just gets hard to do all the little precise sewing bits. It gets even harder when they're really, really tiny pieces. So So this is a good one for that. As well as actually the little chicken, that is a low sew as well. There's almost no sewing. It's just sewing the little comb onto the top and then adding the little beak stitches. So that's an easy one too. And then this is an upcoming pattern. I don't think it's on the website yet, but it is coming very soon. This is a little ornament that I made that was made from a granny square. It's so simple. I mean, it's like the simplest Christmas tree ornament you could probably make. It's got a little bit of cinnamon bark glued into the bottom of it. And it's just created out of a granny square. So it's a very, very simple, simple thing to make. So watch for that. If you guys are members, you'll have access to that as well. All right, I think I've given you guys all the tips and my little 2 cents on each one of these, the conversions of the amigurumi to the to the ornament. So if you're looking for a pattern to use, you know, these are, besides the last 2 that I just showed you, the elephant and the granny square, everything else is a free download to anyone, whether you're, you know, a member or not a member. You just have to sign up for the newsletter in order to be able to get the to receive the download, but you know, they have all of these come with live tutorials that are free for everybody to watch. But you know, if you're looking for a pattern, maybe you already have some other like amigurumi makers and you really, really love their patterns. So if you're looking for something and you're wondering if it could make a good ornament or not, look for amigurumi that's already not too big, because downsizing it by using a skinnier hook, skinnier yarn and a smaller hook, that works great, but it can only downsize so much. Like for example, you know, this was a chenille yarn and it was downsized to this as a sport weight, or sort of in between sport and DK weight yarn. You know, it's quite a bit smaller, but you know, if you can't use like a giant plushie and then expect the ornament to be, you know, really small. So just kind of keep that in mind. It'll probably only get to be about, you know, half the height, or maybe even as small as a quarter of the height if you start out with a really chunky yarn and move to like a very thin yarn. So that's something, you know, you just have to be realistic as to what changing up your hook size and your yarn size, what that will do. And as far as knowing what hook size to use, you know, just start stitching it up with whatever feels like an appropriate hook size, and then look at your fabric and just see if it's nice and dense. If it is, you keep going. If you can see holes between your stitches, you should switch down to a smaller hook. You know, go down 1 or 2 hook sizes until you get the gauge so that it makes a very nice firm fabric where you can't see the stitches between your, the stuffing between your stitches. You want to see your stitches. All right, I think that is it. Oh, Barb, welcome. It says, longtime crocheter, first-time viewer. These are adorable. Thanks, Barb. Well, I'm glad you found us. Welcome. I do these live events usually 2 or 3 times a month. We have these live events. Oftentimes, I am doing like a full-length tutorial. You know, these have all been tutorials, you know, full-length tutorials where I'm teaching people how to make specific projects. But you know, like every once in a while, I throw in these sort of like, I think of them as like show and tell, or sort of like a idea parade kind of ideas. And it was getting closer to Christmas and people starting to make those Christmas gifts, and I had a few people suggest that they wanted to see more ornaments, so here we are. Anyway, I'm glad that you found us, Barb. I'm glad all of the rest of you found us as well, or you've joined us again. That's really wonderful. I love it when you guys are here and you say hi. And I appreciate you guys being here and watching. So if you guys have any more comments, or if you have suggestions for future live events, things that you are excited to make, then definitely put those in the chat. I would love to hear from you guys. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Bye, everyone.